So today, Donald Trump's lawyers are expected to file a pair of appeals to keep his name on the 2024 primary ballot in 2 states. That major legal filing could be in front of the courts at any moment. The former president is hoping to reverse 2 state decisions, one by the Colorado Supreme Court, one by the Maine Secretary of State, both disqualifying his candidacy under the 14th Amendment's insurrectionist ban. We have with us this afternoon one of the people who brought that successful challenge in Maine, former Republican State Senator Tom Saviello. Tom, we're glad to have you. I do want to again point out you are a Republican. You voted for Donald Trump twice. Now you say that he's, quote, threatened the country that you love. I'm wondering what changed and why you're pursuing this when polling indicates that he's the candidate that most Republicans want.
January 6th. And when I sat and watched that take place, it literally made me sick to my stomach. And I felt I had to take some action. Wasn't sure what that was going to be. Did a lot of studying on what the 14th Amendment, Amendment 14, Section 3 has to say. I did some work on trying to understand how that came into being and found out there were a lot of Mainers that were in the U.S. Senate at the time that helped develop it. And then Colorado ruled by saying, yes, he did cause an insurrection. I also read Senator Collins' comments when they tried to impeach Mr. Trump or President Trump right after the insurrection. She even called it an insurrection. So not knowing exactly what my path could be, I was given the opportunity because under Maine law, we actually have to have the Secretary of State determine how the election is going to run. And she made the determination, obviously, in the hearing that Mr. Trump was not qualified, which is our Secretary of State's job to do based on causing the insurrection in Washington on January 6th.
Well, Trump's team is upset about the fact that the Secretary of State made this decision unilaterally, despite your pointing out that it is part of Maine law. They say that the will of voters shouldn't be decided by one person. What's your response?
Well, Maine has a law. We have to follow what our laws say on the book and on the books. And unless they want to, there's 2 ways you can do this. You can change the law or you can change what's required by the state of Maine. One must not forget that the U.S. Congress, and I don't know what year it was, certainly long before I came around, delegated the responsibility of elections to the states. And in the state of Maine, we delegated the election responsibilities to our Secretary of State. And then we crafted laws that told her what her or him or whoever, what they had to do when there was an example of someone applying or running for a certain political office. In this case, Mr. Trump came in to run for president. She certified his application because he had enough petition signatures. But then when we complained, which we're allowed to do under our constitutional rights and under Maine state law, she had a hearing, which was very fair, of which, interestingly enough, they brought no witnesses in. They had very few pieces of information they came, and they objected to her participating after the hearing record was closed. I sometimes think they took us for granted, but at the end of the day, she's simply following law. So what's going to happen in Maine is that because of Title 21A, it will now be referred to the Superior Court. And that now captures what has to be done. The Superior Court will take the arguments from both sides. And I was told today that by January 17th, the Superior Court will make a decision one way or the other. Then depending on what that decision is, it would be appealed to the Maine Supreme Court.
Right.
And then I'm not sure, and as I've talked to a lot of my friends that are judges and lawyers, we're not sure how it then goes up to the U.S. Supreme Court, but I believe eventually it will get there.
Well, I was going to ask about that because you said that you believe strongly that Congress has given the rights over elections to states to handle, but obviously the Supreme Court could weigh heavily on whether Trump appears on the primary ballot, not only in Maine, but also in Colorado, potentially in other states. What do you think is going to happen with your measure to remove Trump once it reaches the highest court in the United States?
Well, that is a great question because I have asked a lot of people, could they sweep it out of our jurisdiction and take it on? The answer I was told was no. They could do a couple of things. One, they could actually not take it up. They could turn around and say, you know what? The U.S. Congress has to change this law. They delegated that responsibility to the states. They could find a small piece of it that they want to address. As you may recall, in Colorado, the judge there basically said, that he was not in an office. The president's position is not an office, and therefore this law does not apply to them. Or they could take it head on as a particular issue that they want to try to define Amendment 14, Section 3, and completeness.
Tom Saviello, we have to leave the conversation there. We very much appreciate you sharing your perspective.
Thanks for asking. See ya.